I can't believe what's happening in Ashbourne right now. Our defense just completely destroyed our franchise quarterback in practice. A veteran All-Pro revealed the most amazing story behind their new number, and Peters made a decision that nobody saw coming, but shows we finally have an organization that understands what it means to build a dynasty. If you thought this season was going to be normal, you're completely crazy. Let's start with what happened on Friday in Ashbourne, because this was historic, and I'm using that word seriously. During the first 2 training camp sessions, the entire narrative had been about how Jaden Daniels looked with his new offensive weapons and an improved line. Terry McLaurin looking spectacular, Austin Eckler bringing that veteran experience, and an offensive line that finally has real depth. But on Friday, our defense said enough with all that attention on the offense, and came out with an energy and mentality I hadn't seen since the days of Sean Taylor. I'm telling you this, when a defense shows up with that vengeful attitude in practice, it's because they know they have something special. And do you know who set the tone from the first snap? Mike Sainristil, our rookie cornerback who's returning to his natural slot position after playing safety out of necessity last year. The kid intercepted Daniels early in practice, and here's what has me excited. According to reports, it was Quan Martin who deflected the pass for Sainristil, the catch for a pick-6 in practice. Do you understand what this means? We have a second year. Rookie and a safety just finding their place, working in perfect synchronization. That's the chemistry you need to have an elite secondary in the NFL. And of course, Sainristil had to talk after the play, showing exactly that confidence we need in our secondary. I believe that attitude is fundamental. We don't want shy guys in the secondary. We want dogs who know they can compete with any receiver in the league. But that wasn't all from Sainristil. The kid also blew up a screen aimed at KJ Osborne behind the line of scrimmage. And here's what really excites me. Bobby Wagner showed him love after that play, validating the rookie's work. Do you understand what it means for a future Hall of Famer like Wagner to recognize your work like that? That's the kind of validation that accelerates a young player's development. Wagner has seen everything in this league, has played with some of the best defenders in NFL history. And if he's recognizing Sainristil's work, it's because he's seeing something special. And speaking of Wagner, let me tell you something. The man showed Father Time can go kick rocks with a spectacular interception against Daniels. The play was described as a full extension grab across the middle of the field. The man is 34 and making plays cornerbacks of 24 can't make. Now, I ask you this. How many times in the last 5 years have we seen a Commanders linebacker make a play like that in coverage? How many times have we seen our defense dominate practice with big plays from multiple players? I'm telling you this, if Wagner can regain some of his coverage ability, this defense can make a huge leap. We all know Wagner is still elite at stopping the run and reading plays, but if he can contribute in coverage as well, we're talking about a linebacker who can completely change our defense. The defensive party continued with Tyler Owens, our second-year safety, intercepting backup Marcus Mariota. And listen to this. Owens has been rotating with the starters throughout training camp to test his development and growth. That tells me competition in that secondary is fierce, and Dan Quinn is seeing something in Owens that he likes. And you know why this is important. Because depth in the secondary is crucial. Last year, we saw how injuries affected us, how we had to move players out of position due to lack of depth. Having Owens developing and competing with the starters gives us real options. Trey Amos added another interception against Daniels in the end zone, while Martian Lattimore had a pass breakup at the goal line against Chris Moore. Do you realize what this means? We have from rookies to veteran All-Pros making big plays in the same session. I believe the most important thing about all this is the message it sends. This defense, which was our Achilles heel last year, is showing that it's not going to be a weakness this season. Quinn brought his Seattle system, and these guys are executing it with conviction, with results clearly visible. And do you know what excites me more than any statistic? that all this gives Jaden Daniels exactly the motivation he needs. Our franchise quarterback doesn't need extra motivation in practice, but having his own defense pushing him to this level, forcing him to be better every day, is going to accelerate his development in an incredible way. The reality is that the best offenses in the NFL practice against elite defenses every day. Look at Tom Brady with the Patriots, always practicing against those Belichick defenses. Look at Aaron Rodgers when the Packers had good defenses. Internal competition elevates the level of the entire team. If that surprises you, wait to hear this. What Von Miller just revealed about his number 24 is one of the most powerful stories I've heard in years and shows exactly why Adam Peters moved so aggressively to bring this Hall of Famer to Washington. Because we're not just talking about an elite pass rusher. We're talking about a leader who understands what it means to represent something bigger than themselves. Miller wore 58 during his 11 dominant years with Denver, where he became a legend and won a Super Bowl. He switched to 40 with the Rams and helped win another Super Bowl, then kept 40 with the Bills. But now in burgundy and gold, he's wearing 24. And when I heard the reasons behind that decision, I immediately understood that we not only brought an elite pass rusher, we brought a mentor who can change the culture of this locker room. The first reason broke my heart, Commanders fans. Miller dedicated the number to Corey Borner, a high school teammate who was paralyzed from the neck down by an injury during a game. Miller and his teammate Cyrus Gray at Texas A&M both wore 24 for a game in honor of Borner, wearing his number as a tribute to a brother who could no longer play dot. Do you understand the level of character this shows? In a league where many players change numbers for marketing or ego, Miller chooses 24 to honor a teammate who lost his ability to play the sport he loved. That is the mentality of a true leader. But do you think the story ends there? You're crazy. Miller also recognized that 24 has sacred history in this franchise. Champ Bailey, Hall of Fame member and one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, wore number 24 during his time here from 1999 to 2003, and I don't believe that connection is a coincidence. Miller could have chosen any available number, but he chose one that connects with the defensive excellence tradition of this franchise. Bailey was a game changer, a player who elevated the entire defense with his presence, and Miller is saying he wants to continue that tradition. And do you know what this tells me about Miller's mentality? That the man studied the history of this organization before arriving. He didn't come here as a mercenary. He came here understanding the culture and tradition he wants to represent. And then comes the final inspiration that convinced me this. Signing is going to be special. Miller mentioned Kobe Bryant as the greatest 24 of all and confessed to being a huge fan of the Mamba mentality. Do you understand the impact this will have on our young locker room? I'm telling you this. The Mamba mentality represents an obsession with excellence, tireless work, and never being satisfied with the status quo. Kobe would get up at 4 a.m. to train, studied every detail of his opponents, and never accepted mediocrity. Isn't that exactly what this organization needs after decades of mediocrity? Now I ask you, when was the last time we had a veteran in this locker room with this level of experience, leadership, and winning mentality? Rivera brought some veterans like Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke, but none with the pedigree and presence of Miller. Miller has won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams. He's been the MVP of a Super Bowl. He's played 14 years in the NFL and is still producing at an elite level. That's the type of resume that demands instant respect in any locker room. But do you know what impresses me more? The humility. Miller showed where he said he didn't want to be that guy who shows up demanding his favorite number if it was already taken. That's the attitude of a veteran who understands how to build locker room chemistry and earn the respect of younger players. This story about number 24 tells me Miller didn't come here to collect a paycheck and retire quietly. The man could have chosen any available number, but he picked one with deep meaning, one that honors important people in his life, a franchise legend and a global icon like Kobe Dot. And do you know why this is fundamental for our development as a team? Because Peters didn't just bring an elite pass rusher. He brought a mentor who can accelerate the growth of players like Jaden Daniels, like Jartavius Martin, like all our young defenders. When you have a future Hall of Famer wearing a number, that honors an injured teammate, a franchise legend, and a global legend like Kobe, you're talking about a level of leadership that transcends football. You're talking about a man who can teach our young players not just how to play, but how to be elite professionals. But that's nothing compared to what's coming. And now we come to a piece of news that many media outlets overlooked, but I believe is fundamental to understanding the philosophy of this new administration and how Peters is building this franchise from the ground up. Adam Peters just extended Percy Butler for one more year, keeping him until 2026. And this decision shows we finally have an organization that understands that details matter. For those unfamiliar with Butler's work, we're talking about a player who survived a complete regime change, which in the NFL is practically a miracle. Ron Rivera left with all his coaching staff. Dan Quinn came in with his completely different system. And Butler not only maintained his place, but earned an extension. Do you understand how difficult that is? In the NFL, when a new regime arrives, they usually clean the house completely. They bring in their own players, implement their system, and players from the previous regime are out. For Butler not only to survive, but also to thrive tells me the kid has something special. And do you know why he survived? Because of concrete numbers that cannot be ignored. Butler was rated by Pro Football Focus as the 20th best special teams player among 90 players graded with at least 292 snaps during the regular season. Additionally, he tied for 11th in most special teams tackles. Those are numbers of real production, not potential or hope. But here's what really excites me about this decision. Peters not only kept Butler, but also extended Jeremy Reeves at the end of minicamp. Do you realize the vision this demonstrates? We're keeping intact a special teams duo that was historically good last year. I'm telling you this with numbers that don't lie. The Commanders were the only team in the NFL that had 3 players among the top 11 in special teams tackles. Nick Bellor timed for first place, Reeves timed for third, and Butler in the top 20. That's an elite unit. And do you know what this tells me about Peters as a general manager? That the man understands you can't build only with big names and million-dollar contracts. You need players who do the dirty work, who are professionals in all phases of the game. Now I ask you, how many times last year were games decided by a few points? How many times did poor punt return coverage or a kickoff that got away cost us the game? Peters understood that you can't build a solid franchise if you don't have every phase of the game covered. Look at the Patriots during their dynasty with Brady and Belichick. Do you know what they had? Elite special teams. Players like Matthew Slater, who dedicated themselves exclusively to being perfect in that phase. And they won Super Bowls because they never neglected the details. But there's an additional dimension to this decision that intrigues me. Butler played 399 defensive snaps last year, while Reeves only saw 5 defensive snaps. This tells me Peters sees Butler not just as a specialist, but as real depth in the safety position. And do you know why this is crucial? Because that was one of my main concerns for this season. What happens if Jeremy Chin gets injured? What if Quan Martin, who is only in his second year, isn't ready to take on more responsibilities? Having Butler as a reliable backup is a smart insurance policy. Dan Quinn's philosophy of having only dogs on special teams is perfectly reflected in Peters' decisions. Butler has that aggressiveness and mentality Quinn values. And when you watch the tape, you can see how the kid comes downfield with clear purpose. I believe this extension also sends a message to the rest of the locker room. If you produce, if you are professional, if you do your job without drama, this organization will take care of you. It doesn't matter if you're a star or a role player. If you contribute to the team's success, you'll be valued. And do you know what else I like about this decision? The flexibility it gives us. With Butler and Reeves secured, we have the freedom to experiment with other players in different roles. Tyler Owens can develop without pressure. The rookie Kane Medrano can learn gradually. And we have real options if we need to make changes. This extension of Butler, along with Reeves, tells me this organization finally understands that the details matter. You can't be a playoff team if you don't have all phases covered. If you don't respect every player who contributes to the team's success. That, Commanders fans, is exactly the mentality we needed to see from this new administration. Peters isn't just looking for headlines. He's building a culture of excellence from the ground up. So, Commanders fans, here you have the 3 news stories that will define how we see this team entering the regular season. A defense that's ready to surprise everyone and could be the key to taking us to the playoffs. A veteran Hall of Famer who understands what it means to lead with purpose and can accelerate the development of our entire organization. And an administration that values every detail in building an elite franchise. I believe that for the first time in decades, we have an administration that understands excellence is not accidental. Peters is not making random decisions. He's building a culture piece by piece. Quinn isn't just putting players on the field. He's creating a winning mentality that extends from the stars to the role players do. You believe this defense can be the surprise of the season and take us to compete with the Cowboys and Eagles. Do you think Miller can be the mentor who finally accelerates Daniel's development and teaches him what it means to be a leader in the NFL? And what do you think about seeing Peters make these smart moves that respect every player who contributes to the team's success? Because I guarantee you that tomorrow we'll have more explosive news about the Commanders. And this organization is just starting to show what it's made of. If you believe this defense will surprise the entire NFC East, and that we finally have the secondary to compete with the league's best defenses, like this video right now, if you think Von Miller was the most important signing of the offseason, and his leadership can be the missing piece to accelerate Daniel's development, subscribe to the channel because we're going to follow every step of his impact on this organization. And if you agree with me that Peters is finally building the right culture, from the stars to the special teams, let me know in the comments. Which of these 3 stories excited you most and why you think this season is going to be different? Because this is our Commanders family, and together we're going to follow every step of this path to excellence. Don't go anywhere, because this week is going to be packed with news about training camp, potential trades, and decisions that will define our final roster. And you can't miss what's coming, because I guarantee you Peters and Quinn are just beginning to show their true plan for this franchise. And remember, hail to the Redskins!